I genuinely think he would be a United player right now if it weren't for that 17 million salary that's outstanding. I think like the deals like between the two clubs, how much they're paying is done. I personally think like personal terms are either easily going to be agreed or already agreed. We just don't know about it. I just think the reason that he doesn't want to leave, like any of us, if we were owed by an employer X amount of money, you would do everything to get that money before leaving the job. You know, they're basically like, they just turned to him and said, we need you to drop your wages so our club can survive. I think it was because of COVID, basically. We're like financially completely unstable, and that's their fault, their club. And now, if you're sitting there, you're watching them sign Lewandowski, paying him big bucks probably, wherever else they've signed on freeze, because they're all going to have big wages if they're on freeze. Was it Kessie, is it, from AC Milan? He gone there on a free. So they're all going to have tidy wages. And at the end of the day, I think he does, like, maybe like United if he wasn't his first choice, but I think that Ten Hag angle has had a bit to play. He's probably been told that, like, you know, you're going to be my main man here. And I'm not too concerned, say, about him not being in early enough. Like, obviously, the main thing is, like, team chemistry, that he'd have to gel with the players, get to know them, this is how I work. But as in for systems, I think, like, he would be able to slot into the system quite easy. But, again, I just would rather it done with. And if that's not going to happen, I think we should just be popping over the Leicester City and just saying, here's 30 million, can we have Tillmans, please? Because, you know, I think that's a perfect backup option for the price, if you have to factor in. Because I don't think, if you look around the market, there's not many other people in that role for a tidy price anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree.
No one that Man United will sign will be at a tidy price. And we'll come back to this because we're going to talk about Newcastle later on. But the Man United have built a reputation for themselves as we want this player, and eventually, after about a year of negotiating, we'll give you double the price. So if they did want to go for Tielemans, they could expect 60 million or more. So I wouldn't really think about the money too much. 85 million is far too much anyway for De Jong, but everyone you're going to sign is going to be inflated essentially. To build on sort of his ability and things, and it does come with red flags again for me. I think it's more the position that United are trying to fill, right? He is a deeper lying player, which is a problem area. You look at Fred, Matic, McTominay, not up to it. And certainly not up to top four standard, which is where Man United want to strive to be back at, essentially. The concern I would have is he's being replaced by Frank Kessie, again, the player who I don't think is good enough. So why are they trying to replace him with a player that's also not good enough? I'm a big fan of Pedri and Messi. So over the last 2 years, I've been watching a little bit more Barcelona. And they have been, but Pedri and Gavi have been outperforming De Jong. De Jong has sort of slipped in the team. There has been a lot of mismanagement. Look, Barca have been going backwards. It's not all De Jong's fault, but I think he's been underwhelming as a signing. So to go out and pay 85 million for him, I'm really not sure. But there is the Erik Ten Hag connection there. He's played in that system before. Obviously, didn't work for Hakim Ziyech coming to the Prem. You look at some other players, hasn't quite worked for. But I think it would be okay from a strategic point of view, from Erik Ten Hag. The concern that I have is there doesn't seem to be an ability by Erik Ten Hag at the moment at Manchester United to lure any players that don't have an Ajax connection. Why? Why does no one want to play from that?
I'll let you answer that one. So why do people not... Are United just not a big draw anymore, Becky? What do you think?
Well, I think is it that they can't lure players in that aren't linked to Ajax, or is it just not the angle that Ten Hag wants to go about it? You know, we don't know behind the scenes. Has he tried to attract other players that aren't linked to Ajax and it's been unsuccessful? Or is he just the case that he's got a way that he likes to play and a system that he likes to use, a style of football, and he feels that the players that he's worked with in the past or players that suit what he does is the best way to go about it, you know? And I think time will tell with that, because
Yeah.
He's trying to get the band back together. Van der Beek, De Jong, that midfield that worked so well for him. Not just in the Dutch league, because people say, "No, it's the Dutch league," but they were tearing apart some of the top teams in the Champions League as well with that midfield. So it's kind of an unanswerable question. I don't know if they've tried to get other targets that aren't from Ajax or Dutch and failed. I just genuinely think that might be his approach and the type of play that he wants to go for.
He's demonstrated an ego now, isn't he? De Jong. Looks like as you mentioned earlier, Vec, he is kicking and screaming now. He doesn't want to leave Barca. It's not the right attitude to have, Do you want to play like that? A mercenary, essentially? I'm not sure. I would leave that one if it was me. Pursue Neves, overspend on him, overspend on Tielemans. You're going to overspend anyway, so at least overspend on a player who actually dreams of coming to Manchester United.
It is like what Crook said as well, though. Like, sounds like he's kicking and screaming, but is it just largely due to the money? If they can get it over the line and he does sign, will they just be content Hag just create harmony, put an arm around the shoulder saying, look, I know this hasn't worked out for you. This is the project. This is what we're working towards. And then the next minute, he's happy and he's firing on all cylinders. So it's sometimes you just got to be careful how much you dive into Twitter, isn't it? And what people on Twitter are saying is happening.
Of course. One thing to remember, it's an important point as well. And I'm sure we'll do a long segment on it in another episode. And once we've all had a chance to really dive into it and what's going on at Barcelona. But it's £17 million in wages. If your employer didn't give you 100 quid 1 week, you'd be fuming. So the guy's out of pocket 17 million. I think I'd kick off as well. I think that's important to remember.
Yeah, I'd be the same. I'd do as much as possible not to leave until I've got money at the end of the day.
Understandable, right?
Yeah, 100%. I will. And that's why I think that's purely why he's dragging on so long.
Yeah, the De Jong thing, I read an interesting segment on it the other day just to streamline it. United, I find it hard to believe that United spend all this time agreeing a fee for Frenkie De Jong. And the question never came up. Well, are you going to pay him what you owe him so he can leave? Like, surely once you've agreed a fee, that's the next step, right? Like, should Barcelona go, yeah, look, he's yours, we'll pay him what we owe, and he can jump on the next flight and go. But that hasn't happened. And from what I gather, Frenkie De Jong's agent, FYI, very, very savvy guy, has told Frenkie De Jong, anytime your name comes up in the press, you're happy at your employer, you don't want to leave. Now, the reason you do that is because if this does have to go to, I think it's the Court of Arbitration for Sport, Frenkie De Jong can just paint himself as the perfect employee. I never asked to leave. I never kicked off. My wife is happy here. I've always wanted to be at my dream club. Whereas if Frenkie De Jong requests a transfer, all of a sudden then Barcelona can go, well, we're only giving you 3 million. You want to leave. So it's very messy. And to streamline it, I don't know why that conversation wasn't maybe a bit more concise with United, where they've gone, look, we've agreed a fee. Any chance you can maybe do a bank transfer and just give him what he's owed, so we can get this done? Because we're all a bit bored of it. And Barcelona are very difficult to deal with.